Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to the Microsoft 365 Saturday Gurgaon virtual event. And today, the topic of this talk is implementing Microsoft Teams governance using Power Automate, Microsoft Graph APIs, and SharePoint. So who am I? My name is Prashant G. Bhoyar. I was born and raised in India. I came to United States back in 2007 for studies and University of Maryland College Park alumni. I co-authored a book, PowerShell for Office 65, and I also acted as a technical reviewer for the book Pro SharePoint 2013 Administration. I am from Washington DC area, and I organize a lot of community events as well as conferences. And pre-COVID-19 pandemic days, we used to organize most of the events and conferences as in person only. But post-COVID, we have converted all our events as virtual events. So if you are interested in joining us, these are the links you can follow. Where depending on your interest, if you are interested in AI and machine learning, then you can follow that group. If you are interested in Microsoft 365, we have a user group for that. And if you are interested in SQL Server, the big data, and Hadoop, we have a group for that as well. And as I mentioned, I organize a lot of free as well as paid events in the Washington DC metropolitan area, including SharePoint Saturdays and the events targeted to AI and machine learning. I am recipient of Antarctic Service Medal, so I got this award from U.S. government for the work I did in Antarctic continent back in 2008. And I am recipient of Microsoft MVP award since 2017. And those of you who are not familiar with this award, so I don't work for Microsoft. It's just additional recognition that Microsoft gives out to the folks who does technical contributions in various products. So the way this award work is we had to submit our contributions from last 12 months, and those contributions can be in the form of writing blog articles, answering people's questions on the various forums, creating training videos, speaking at the conferences. And if your contributions are good enough, then Microsoft will award you as an MVP in a specific category for 12 months. And after 12 months, you have to again apply for renewal. So for initial couple of years, I was a SharePoint MVP. And since 2019, I changed my category and I am now AI MVP. And I currently work as a senior solution architect with a company called Witham. And we are based in US. Most of our offices are in East Coast of US. And we have recently opened an office in California, and we have also office in Bangalore. If you are looking for a change, we have few openings in the Bangalore area, especially if you are well versed with SharePoint framework and Microsoft 65. So definitely hit me up, and you can be remote as well. You don't have to be residing in Bangalore for that. If you are in any part of the world or in any part of India, welcome to apply with us. And I currently focus on intelligent business process automation, where I use various products from Microsoft stacks like Azure, Microsoft 365, the products from Microsoft Power Platform like Power Automate, Power Apps to build intelligent process automation. Along with that, we also use some of the AI offerings from Microsoft like cognitive services, Azure Machine Learning to add the intelligent edge. And as I mentioned, I am from Washington DC area and I work from Witham's Washington DC office. So this is the information about our company. We have two Microsoft MVPs on the staff. We have done 100 plus Microsoft Cloud deployments, and we have 50 plus consultants are dedicated to Microsoft stack only. And we are providing Microsoft services from last 17 years. And these are the various capabilities that we have. As I mentioned, if you're interested joining us for the future virtual events, please hit up any one of these links. I know one conference is coming up, which is more geared towards the AI, machine learning, and big data, which is going to be on 14th of November. So what's the agenda for today? So today we will talk with Microsoft Teams key components. We will then talk about Microsoft Teams governance. Then when it comes to provisioning teams, what are the options available to us? Then we'll talk about what are Microsoft Graph APIs, what is Power Automate, what are logic apps. We will have demos, key takeaway, and question and answers. So feel free to ask the questions at any time. You can either type your question in the chat window, or you can also unmute yourself and ask the question, because I prefer the session to be more interactive session. So when it comes to Microsoft Teams, these are the standard Teams functionality that we get. Like we have chats, we have Teams and channels, we have meeting, we have voice, and we also have apps, bots, and connector. One thing to note that we need additional add-on license for something like audio conferencing, or having to have a toll-free number. So when you sign up for Microsoft 365 and you have a license assigned to Teams, so that will not automatically give you the option to do additional things like making the conference calls and having a toll-free number. And if you're joining, just a quick reminder, just make sure you are mute unless you have any specific questions. I think someone is not on mute, so let me quickly go ahead and mute them. Oh, perfect. Looks like they muted themselves. That's good. All right. So let's talk about automated governance. So when it comes to automated governance in Microsoft Teams, these are the various things we can do. We can have retention policies where, based on the retention policy, if let's say a project group creates a team, then after some days, that team will get deleted automatically. You can also have security groups for the teams. You can have expiration policies, and we can have teams naming policies as well. And these are most the common automation use cases that we have seen so far. And now let's say why we should consider automated governance, right? Because it helps you to ensure consistency. It also empower the users. And also one of the key advantages, it reduces the admin overhead. In the sense is, uh, like admin doesn't have to constantly monitor how many teams got created, whether they're getting used or not. So if you have any kind of automation around it, then admin can then focus on other tasks rather than just monitoring how the teams are getting used. Looks like someone is not on mute. So let me go ahead and quickly mute them. Uh, and mute. Okay, muting. Okay, all right, muted everyone. All right. So just a quick advice. If you are joining the conference call or this Teams meeting invite, just make sure you are on mute unless you have any specific question for us. All right. And if you have any question, I'm also monitoring the chat window as well. All right. So as I mentioned, the automated governance helps you to reduce the admin overhead. So when it comes to the team naming policies, having the naming convention help you to manage the growth of the teams, the groups, and the SharePoint. Now, if this is the first time that is hearing about the teams, whenever you create a team, along with the team, you get a Office 65 group, and you also get a SharePoint site as well. So having a proper naming convention help. One of the example I would like to give you here is, if your organization allows you to collaborate with external users, and let's say you have a team where you're creating a team for a project where some of the users will be from your organization and few users will be from your client organization or partner organization, and they are not in your Active Directory. What you can do is you can have some kind of naming convention where if you are inviting external users in that team, then your team name will start with external or something like that. So that way, if someone is quickly browsing through the team name, they will know by just looking at the name what's the purpose of this team, whether it is for external use or internal use. If it's for the internal use, then you can have a name of the client, the purpose. So that helps you a long way when it comes to managing and finding out the team that you would like to use. And another thing we can do as part of the automated governance is you can have expiration policies, because ever since COVID-19 has started, the usage of Teams has skyrocketed. And we have seen is more and more organizations are using Teams. Looks like someone is on the not on a mute. Let me go ahead and mute them. Sorry for this uh, trouble. All right, everyone is on the mute. So let's go ahead. So having expiration policies helped you to overcome the team sprawl. So imagine, let's say you are interested in rolling out teams in your organization, and now you created few test teams and you like what you saw, and now you decided to roll out the teams in your organization, and somehow you forgot to delete all the teams that you created for testing purposes. And then as new and new people or new and new groups in your organization started using teams, sooner or later you will have teams created for a project where the team collaborated on that project for, let's say, in the beginning of this year, but that project is done and you no longer need to have that team anymore. However, you forgot to delete that team. If that's the case, then you will have lots and lots of teams available in your tenant. And one thing you have to keep in mind is, even though in Office 365, Microsoft will take care of hosting everything for us when it comes to Teams infrastructure, SharePoint infrastructure. The more teams you have or more SharePoint site collections you have, the more burden you will be putting on your tenant, and you will see some performance degradation over the time. So it is best to have some kind of expiration policies where you set the expiration policy that helps you to keep only the teams that you need. And if some team doesn't need to be there, then you can get those deleted automatically. So we can have, when it comes to the content expiration, if you set that up, then the owners normally get notified via email, and they get periodic reminder like the 30 days, 15 days. And then the owners also get the option to renew at these intervals. If they don't renew, then the team will get automatically deleted. And let's say, for example, you have only single owner for a team, and that owner is on vacation or has a family emergency and cannot access the emails. And let's say that email reminder went to that owner and they forgot to take action and the team got deleted, then admin can restore that team up to 30 days after expiration. That's why it's always important that you have more than one owner per team. That way, if you have expiration policy or if you have to take some action, and if one owner is not available, then at least you can have fall back on another owner to take that action for you. And you can find more information about expiration policies by going to this link. Again, this is all automated option. You just have to do some configuration. You don't have to write any custom code to implement Teams expiration. Another way to do automated governance is having a security groups for Teams creator. So when it comes to creating the teams, we have seen a lot of organizations have different kind of uh, approaches they prefer. And if you enable everyone to create team in your organization, and let's say your users are not that tech savvy, you may be seeing a lot of teams got created, but nobody's using those. Or when the teams got created, they are not following the right naming convention. And it also then leads to having the teams sprawl. So there is a way where you can limit who in your organization can create teams. And for that, you can use security groups. However, you need some added licensing for automated governance. So if you are planning to use uh, team naming policies or expiration policies or security groups for Teams Creator, you need Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 1. Uh, if you are subscribing for Office 65 E3, which is more common kind of license, then this Azure AD Premium Plan 1 will most likely not be included in that. So you have to subscribe for this additionally. And also for the retention policies, you need Office 65 Enterprise E3 or above for that. So what if you don't have this? Like what if you don't have any of this additional licensing and you still would like to have some kind of automated governance when it comes to creating the teams, having a proper naming convention. So in that case, you can use custom code for that. But before we jump into that, let's me talk you to about the teams template. So we have a teams template where you have pre-built definition for a team, including channels and the apps. And these are the properties that the teams template support. So we can have a team name, a team description, teams visibility, like who will be uh, uh, the public or like whether the team will be public or private, and then what will be the team settings, the install apps and the pin tabs. So team templates comes really handy. And if you have done any work when it comes to automating provisioning of the SharePoint sites with predefined list and libraries and content types, the similar concepts is getting used in the team templates as well, where you have a you have a reference template which has a predefined configuration. And if you create a new team using this template, then the newly created team will also have the same kind of assets. And the properties that are supported as of yet are what will be the base type of template. Then you can have the team name description. You can also configure what are the tabs that will get installed, how many tabs will be, what you can also configure the pin tabs as well. These are the things which are not supported yet. But I think sooner or later the support may get added for that. Like you can define who will be the team member, team picture, channel settings, connectors, files and content, etc. And these are the base templates we are available right now. So we always like if you create then the standard template is the default. Then apart from that, we can also have education. And for education, we have 3 templates. We have retail for 2 templates, and for healthcare, we have 2 templates as well. And of course, we can create a custom template as well. So let's say you would in your organization, you would like to implement automated governance for the team's creation, and you don't have access to any of the existing the premium licenses, then how you can implement that using the custom code. Then yes, I am sharing the screen, Bharat. You are not seeing that. Okay, so let's talk about the application design. And I see a couple of questions in the chat window. I will come to that later on. So when it comes to application design, this is how you can have your application design, where to request a new team, a user needs to submit a form, and you can host that form anywhere. In the sense, if you are a traditional SharePoint shop, then you can host that team, that particular form in the SharePoint. But let's say this is the first time you're using Microsoft Team and your organization is not that familiar with SharePoint. Then you can use something else as well, like Office 65 form, where you just create a form and then user request about a new team using that. And then you implement some kind of approval. And with it. And for the approval, you either go with either Power Automate, that is Microsoft Flow, or you can also use something called Logic App as well. And we will be covering both the scenarios, like how you can do the automation using one Power Automate and second using Logic Apps. And upon approval, then team gets created automatically with proper naming convention. And also while creating the team, we will use a predefined template as well. So now when it comes to automatic provisioning of the teams, these are the options available to us. So the options, I will be listing all the options and I will not be covering each and every options, but I'll be just covering two options. So more common is you have Microsoft Flow, which is used for approval, and via Microsoft Flow, you will call Microsoft Graph APIs, which and then using Microsoft Graph API, you will be creating the team. And also if you need to add additional members or owners, you will be also doing that using the Graph API calls. However, one thing you have to keep in mind is to call Microsoft Graph APIs from the flow, you need Power Automate Premium license. Then second option is your approval is happening via Flow, and then Flow in turns called Azure function, and Azure function then use Microsoft Graph API to provision the team, and while provisioning, add use the proper naming convention, and also uh, add owners and does other modifications as well. However, to use this approach, you will need a Power Automate Premium license, and to use Azure function, you will need additional Azure subscription as well. Another option is you use the combination of Flow, Microsoft Graph APIs, and Azure API apps. Again, you will be substituting Azure function here with Azure API apps, and the same concept here, where you will need additional premium license for Power Automate, and you need Azure subscription. Another thing you can do if you don't want to go with premium Power Automate license is you use the combination of Logic Apps and Microsoft Graph APIs. However, to use Logic Apps, you need Azure subscription. And for some organization, it's easier said than done to get a Azure subscription. I have worked with few clients where they are a part of a department and they have access to Office 65, but getting an Azure subscription is not that easy for them, and they had to go through a lot of approvals as well. So then the next approach we can use is we have a Logic Apps for approval, and then Logic Apps will then in turn call Azure function, and through Azure function, then we call Microsoft Graph APIs to create the teams and apply naming convention, and then to add additional modification. Same thing, we can replace Azure function with Azure API apps. But in case your organization does not have access to Azure, and your organization does not have access to Power Automate Premium license, you can still implement automation using the combination of PowerShell script and Microsoft Graph APIs, or the combination of a console application which calls the Graph APIs, and then you host this either PowerShell script or console application inside your infrastructure. That means you can host them in any Windows server, and then using the Windows Task Scheduler, you basically execute this script or console application on a periodic basis. However, personally, I don't recommend this approach because it is error prone and you will have a single point of failure. But if you don't have access to Power Automate Premium, and if your organization cannot have Azure subscription, then these are the two options that you can consider. So in today's talk, what I will be covering is how to use Flow, and from Flow, how to use Microsoft Graph APIs to automatically create teams, and also how to use Logic Apps and how to call Microsoft Graph APIs to that. With that, I would like to pause here and see if you have any questions. So far, the questions I see is there is a comment from Marcus. He's saying we can manage who can create the MSL groups by means ADD PowerShell. So I need to double check on that, but looks like that is for the groups only. I need to double check whether that we can use for the teams as well, because if we go by that route, then we may have to convert that group to a Microsoft Teams by using additional PowerShell commandlets. And then second thing is, can we have a Teams archival instead of delete those? So can you? Yes, you can do that, but that again did based on your usage, like whether what's the real business case for that, like why you would like to archive something rather than getting deleted. Of course, you can do that, and there are some additional uh, options available in Office 365. Some options may be available with your license. For some, you may have to get additional license, because I'm personally not that familiar with archival and other stuff. Any other question before we go? Okay, do we have user activity based on team expiration? So the question is, do we have user activity based team expiration policy? That I need to double check. I know in SharePoint we used to do that. I think in Teams, I need to check like what are the things we can set up there when it comes to expiration, whether it's solely depending on the date or whether it's depending on the user activity as well. If anyone in the audience knows that answer, please feel free to chime in. Any other question? Okay. All right. So let's talk about Power Automate. If this is the first time you are hearing about Power Automate, then it is one of the product inside the Microsoft Power Platform. And Microsoft Power Platform is the low code platform where we can build apps that spans across Microsoft 365, Azure, Dynamics 365, and these are the options. Various products are available to us. And today we'll be covering about Microsoft Power Automate, which is, by the way, if you are coming from SharePoint, then under Microsoft Power Automate, we can create the flow, and Microsoft Flow is the logical successor for SharePoint Designer workflows. And its motto is to automate various tasks and then help the team work smarter. And these are so when Microsoft announced about Microsoft Flow, okay, I'll take that back. In 2016, Microsoft launched this product as a Microsoft Flow. And then last year, they rebranded it as a Power Automate. And inside the Power Automate, we can create automated flows. We can create the button flows, flows, business process flows, and UI flows. In our case, for the automation, like automatically creating the teams, we will be creating the flow. So inside Power Automate, we will be still creating the flows, but now along with the flow, we also get some additional options like business process flows and UI flows. Uh, so now let's talk about what is Microsoft Graph APIs, because to create Microsoft Teams and to modify certain settings of Microsoft Teams using custom code, we can use something called Microsoft Graph API. So Microsoft Graph API is a gateway to the data and intelligence in Microsoft 365. It offers a single endpoint where we can, using that endpoint, we can interact with various services which are there in Microsoft 365. So without the Microsoft Graph API, if you had to if you had to interact with SharePoint, or if you had to interact with Outlook, then we have to then work with individual REST endpoint with of various services. However, to simplify the usage, what Microsoft has done is over each product specific API, they launch another API on the top of it called Graph API, where we just have to make a call to the Graph API, and under the hood, then Graph API will make call to specific service, whether it's a SharePoint or Planner or Teams or Office 365 group, and then give us the information back. So it exposes the REST APIs and client libraries to access data which exist in various Microsoft 365 services like the Dell, the Excel, Microsoft Bookings, the Teams, the OneDrive, the SharePoint, the Planner. And also along with that, we can also access the data which comes under enterprise mobility and security services like the threat analytics, advanced threat protection, Azure Active Directory, Identity Manager, and Intune. We can also have the REST APIs for the Windows 10 services and Dynamics 365 Business Central as well. So before I jump into the demo part of this, let me show you the quick overview of the Microsoft Graph API. So if this is the first time you are seeing the Microsoft Graph API, then all right, Google or Bing, the Microsoft Graph API in your favorite browser. And this is the link that we are looking for, Microsoft Graph Dev Center. So here you will be seeing the latest information about what Microsoft Graph is. You will also seeing some of the latest news, some of the training videos as well. and what are this supported on. And on the doc side, you will see the detailed description of the Graph APIs. And if you scroll down here, you will see the various Graph API calls that are available in case, let's say for the teams, what are some of the calls available to us. And then you will see the detailed description about what kind of API call it is, what this call will do. And let's say if I had to create a team, then what kind of call I had to make. So basically, this is the request I'll need to make. And in the request header, these are the things I had to pass, whether it's a bearer token or something else. And in the request body, what I need to do. And this is how I need to create the request. And this is how the response will come back. And what kind of permission I will need as well. So this is the sample documentation, but one of the key feature of Microsoft Graph that I personally like is the Graph Explorer. So you see here the link to the Graph Explorer, click on that. So here Microsoft has created an application for us, which is again an open source, and you can find information about on GitHub, where we can test Graph APIs using this application on the fly. And by default, this application comes with some test data where I can quickly run this API calls. Like if I click on in the left hand navigation get profile. So this is how this will be a get call, and this will be the URL of the call, and this is how the response will come back. Along with that, we also have some other options or pre-built calls. Like we have the calls for SharePoint, we have the calls for the Teams and other various products as well. Another good thing is, so by default, you can execute this API calls again the text data, but you can also sign up with your Office 365 account, so you can make the calls in your tenant, and you can see the results live. So here I log in with my tenant here, and now if I make a call, it's coming back with the information from my tenant. So this is the quickest and easiest way to quickly find out what kind of call you had to make, what kind of information you had to pass as for the request header, and in what format the response will come back. The reason I'm saying that because when it comes to using this kind of calls in the products such as Microsoft Power Automate or Logic App, which are built on the drag and drop functionality, it's easier to first identify what kind of calls you have to make, either using Graph Explorer or any other sample app you build using custom code, and then use that calls and then construct the headers inside the flow. That will help you to solve a lot of that will help you to reduce the time it takes to finalize what kind of call you had to make. So when it comes to the demo, what I have is a very simple application. So I have a form which uh, my team members will be submitting. And here what I have is I will have a title. Let's call it as M365 and Gurgaon 01. And then what's the purpose of this team? Again, this form is to request a new team, and I will be adding this team is for the finance department, and click save. And then here I have a drop down where we have to specify the department. So I will call, OK, this department is finance. And again, you can have either a drop down here if you would like to limit how many departments you would like to show. And you can specify who will be the additional owner and who will be the additional members. So members I will keep blank, and owners I will just keep one user, and then click save. So moment this will get saved, this gets saved. What I have done is I have created a flow which will get triggered every time the new item is created in that particular SharePoint list. And then what we'll be doing is the next thing is I'm setting few variables, and we will be coming to these variables later on. And then I'm starting an approval process. And once that approval process starts, and after let's say the request gets approved, then we are making few Graph API calls to provision the team. And once the team gets provisioned, then we are updating the request in the SharePoint. Now let's talk about so to use the Graph APIs, we need to first register or to use Graph APIs from Microsoft Flow or any other custom application, we have to first register that application in our Azure Active Directory. Now, the reason we have to do that is just to make sure our Azure Active Directory know from where the request is coming from, and also so that they can validate the request, and also depending on what kind of permission that particular custom application is requesting, then Azure Active Directory can validate that permission. So for that, what we need to do it is just go to your Azure Active Directory uh, and go to Azure Active Directory here. And in the left hand navigation, click on the app registration. And then here, just click on a new registration and then create a name. So I'm going to be calling it M365 Gurgaon Teams Creation App. And then who can use this application or access this API? So you have various options, whether only accounts in your organization directory, or you would like to use a multi-tenant, or along with multi-tenant, you also would like to support Microsoft accounts like the Outlook.com or Skype accounts or other things. So in this case, I'll be going with organization only. And then this is a redirect URI is optional, and then you just click register. And once you register, this is the key. Please note down your application ID because we will need that. And then the next thing is we also need the tenant ID. So note down that as well. And I see a couple of questions in the chat window. I will come back to those later, and those are related to the duration of the approval. I will revisit those questions later once I finish with this one. And then the next important thing is once you note down the directory ID and the application ID, then the next thing we need is certificate and secrets. So there are two ways where you can do authentication when it comes to when you register app in Azure Active Directory. The recommended one is using certificates, which is more secure. However, it needs a lot of configuration, and I will definitely recommend you if you are looking to do that, then one of former Microsoft MVP and now who is part of Office 65, Microsoft Graph team. His name is Bob German. Just search for his name, Bob German, and uh, Azure Active Directory registration, and you will see a really good step-by-step tutorial from him how to use certificate-based authentication. In our case, I'll be using client secret and client ID. So here, click on new secret, and I'll be calling it as M65 Gurgaon Teams um, provision. And you can either specify the duration of the client secrets, either 1 year, 2 year, or never. So I'll go with 1 year and click add. And then note down this client secret, because we will need the combination of directory ID, the application ID, and the client secret to make the call. And then the next thing we'll be need is the permission. So once it does that, then next thing we have to do is specify what kind of permission our application, and the name of our application is this one, will have. So click on add. Before I do add, by default, when you create an application, we always have a user .read. Now let's click add, and here we can specify the permissions for commonly used Microsoft Graph APIs. You will see Microsoft Graph API, Microsoft Graph is on the top, but if you scroll down, there are some other options available as well. In our case, we are looking to have an app where we can use that app to register to create a team. So that means we will need a Microsoft Graph API for that. And then I will be going with the application permission. And here you can just search for the team. and see if we can have that. Okay, so we have the permission available where we can create a team and we can get the list of all the teams, and depending on what your app would like to do, you have to specify the permission. Again, um, just like we do with the golden rule we follow when it comes to permission is you should give permissions the only thing that you need for that means you start with low level of permission and you should elevate that to the higher level depending on your use case. Same thing you should be doing here as well. So you should be only giving permission that you need to. Don't just give permission to everything and then click add permission. And you can have your users to give the consent, or the admin can give consent on behalf of everyone. So in this case, I will be using the admin account and grant the consent on behalf of everyone. So step one is done where we have registered our app and we granted the proper permission to it. Now the next thing is we have to make the call from Microsoft Flow to create the team. So for that, I will come back to the flow here. And first thing we are doing is we have providing the trigger where whenever a new request is submitted, start the flow. Your trigger can vary depending on what kind of business logic you would like to implement. If you would like to create the teams on a specific time of the day, you can have your flow triggered at a specific time using the timer trigger. But in this case, the trigger is whenever a new item is getting created in the SharePoint list. Then we have three variables. In the first variable, we are specifying the application ID and the variable type is string. In the second variable, we are specifying the Azure AD directory ID. And the third variable, we are specifying the client secret. And make sure you are not sharing your client secret with anyone, because if for some reason your client secret and your application ID and a directory ID is released to outside, then anyone can make call on your behalf. And that will be a huge a problem for you. That's why I'm not clicking on client secret here, because I don't want to show that since it's getting recorded. The next thing is then we have an action called start approval, and we will start the approval. And here I have predefined like who the approval will be, but you can here you can use any other group, or you can use multiple people here for the approval process. And once the request is approved, then first uh, call I'm making is I'm making an out of the box call called get user profile. And here what I need is I would like to get the user principal name for the person who has requested this. And again, I have used the field called created by, but you can use any other field here. The idea is to get the UPN of the person you would like to mention as the owner while creating the team. And the next thing I'm doing is I am making a HTTP call. And the call here is the post call, and this is the URI I need to use. And this is the information I need to pass in the body, like what should be the display name. And if you see here, I have used the display name as the combination of the department and the title, and then what's the purpose, and who should be the owner here. And also, I have mentioned what kind of template it will be using. So I'm going with the standard template. But here, if you would like to use any pre-built out-of-the-box template or custom-built template, you can use that. And if I expand show advanced options, so here I'm specifying the value of authentication. So what kind of authentication I will be using in this HTTP request. So I'll be using Azure Active Directory OAuth. And then when I select that, then these are the things I need to configure. In the authority, I had to configure or add HTTPS dot login dot Microsoft.com. Then I had to specify who will be the audience, and then the tenant, the client ID, the client secret as well. And if the call is successful, then the Microsoft team will get created for us. And then if after that is done, then we are just updating the status that, okay, the team has been created. So this is very simple implementation of it. And let's say if you are confused, you don't know what kind of call you had to make, then you just have to refer the sample documentation from Microsoft, where uh, You will get the information what kind of request you had to make, whether it's a get, post, and then what kind of information you had to pass in the request. With that, what I will be doing next is I will be submitting this and I will be completing this demo and then I will revisit the questions. Okay. So what we have done is we have selected department as finance. This is the title and I will be clicking save. And now uh, let's go back to this and the approval should start for this particular request. And in the meantime, what I'll be doing is I will also open my Microsoft Teams tab so that we can verify after we approve the request, the team got created or not with proper naming convention. So let's use the web app here and let's go to manage the flow. Okay, so team is there. Now let's go here and also in the meantime, open the Outlook as well. So I'll be going here and opening my Outlook as well. And since it's taking some time, I will be revisiting the question. So let's go back to the flow one more time and see if it's running. If it's not, then we will be okay. All right, I clicked on the wrong one. So let's move this tab here. And let's see. It is still not running. So let's see the questions. Okay. Um, okay. I'm waiting. Okay, if a waiting time of approval is more than 30 days, then how can we manage? So this is the hard limitation of Microsoft Flow, where every flow instance will automatically get terminated if that flow instance is running for more than 30 days, and there is no way to bypass that. So you can use some workarounds, like you can use the combination of parent and child flow, where uh, you have a parent flow, and if let's say the child flow is running for more than 30 days and if it terminates, then you implement something in business logic where it again start the child flow. However, there is no straightforward um, what's the right term, phrase, straightforward way to bypass this limitation. That's why when you implement your business logic, you have to keep that into mind. The 30-day limitation, even if you go with logic app, it also come with predefined number of days that you can have your logic app instance running. How can we keep a log of each law action in the flow? So for that, what you can do is, so flow comes with a really good logging mechanism, in the sense that every time any action get executed, you will see the detailed response. But if your question is more around how we can name the actions better, uh, then you can always click on action here and click on rename, and you can rename the action by that. Or if you would like to add additional comments, you can also add additional comments in using this add a comment, where you can specify what's the purpose of this flow and what exactly you are doing in this particular action. I hope that answered your question. And looks like there is one
I
hand
have
up. Mhm.
I have a question, Banu here. So in the app registration, you have selected the application permissions.
Mhm.
So instead of the connection that I used for the flow, if at all he's the Teams administrator, he or she, so can I go for the delegated permissions?
So when you can also go with the excellent question. You can also go with the delegated permission. However, you will need to so you need to see like under which account that flow will be running. And if that
Yeah.
flow account has access to create the teams, then yes,
Yeah.
you are fine with delegate permissions as well. But in most of the organization, especially like if you would like to restrict who can create the permissions, who can create the teams and who can modify the teams, they can go with uh, the app permissions.
Okay.
Okay, let me go back and see whether this flow has run or
Thank you.
not. Uh, Okay, looks like there is a problem with the flow. Doesn't matter. What I'll be doing next is I will be moving on to the logic app that I have created. So one thing before I open the logic app, let me quickly go to the edit here. And I think there is something wrong with the licensing of my uh, Power Automate license here. So if I go here and if I try to add HTTP, notice that the HTTP is a premium connector, and to call Graph APIs, we need to use HTTP action, and this is a premium action in Power Automate or Microsoft Flow. So if you are getting Microsoft Flow license through Office 365, then this premium option will not be covered, and you have to explicitly sign up for the premium license. And if your organization does not want to do that, there is another workaround available where we use something called a logic app, and this is the logic app I have here. So let me quickly enable this and
Hey,
let me quickly
Prashant,
show you. Mhm.
Vignesh, just a gentle reminder, you have 7 more minutes left.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, Power Automate is built on the top of logic app. Uh, so let me quickly go. I will not be covering the details of the logic app. However, I want to cover one thing real quick, which is this one. So we have Azure, right? Azure is a public cloud offering from Microsoft. And inside Azure, we have Logic App, which is the workflow engine in Azure. And when Microsoft launched Microsoft Flow, they built Microsoft Flow on the top of Logic App. So underlying engine, the underlying, the way the Logic Apps and Power Automate works are pretty much the same. However, Power Automate is part of Power Platform, and along with so there are some overlap when it comes to the feature parity. However, Power Automate also brings the UI flows, the business process flows, and the SharePoint approvals and some additional actions as well. However, if you look at the Power Logic apps and Power Automate, the underlying principle, the way you develop them are pretty much the same. However, the licensing and some of the actions that are there varies. So in this case, what I have is I have created a Logic app, and again, the principle is the same. We have a trigger where this logic app starts whenever uh, a new request is submitted. And instead of the regular approval that comes with Flow, we are using another action which comes in Logic App, which is send approval email. So instead of using the Flow approval, we are using email approvals. And if the request gets approved, then we are doing the exact same thing where we are using the HTTP trigger, HTTP action, and then make a post call to create the team. And the configuration and everything is the same. Another thing is if you look at the Power Automate, we can export the Power Automate and deploy that as a Logic app as well. And while the export import operation, we may have to configure a few actions which are not there in the Logic app. So let's see if it has run or not. And let me quick refresh. Okay, so the Logic app is running right now. And let me go back to my emails and see if there is any email for my approval. Looks like this email is coming from. Okay, all right. So looks like everything started working. I did get an approval message from the Flow as well as the Logic app. In this case, I'll be going with the Logic app. So the key difference between the approval between the Logic app and the Flow. So both will send you the email and both you can take action in the email. However, in case of the Flow, We can also see all the approvals in the Flow UI as well. However, when it comes to the approval that we send through the Logic app, that's only available via the email. So you will see this one. We already have this, and we can access that using multiple location. Where is my email? So I will be going with the one which got created with the Logic app, and then I will just click approve. And if it's get approved, then let's get back. Then if it's finished, then the team will be created. Since we have just a couple of minutes left, would like to cover a couple of things real quick, and then I will revisit the finished team. So as I mentioned, we can export out an existing flow into a Logic app. So that step is not straightforward, but still you can reuse a lot of business logic that you have configured in a flow into the newly created a Logic app. In case you would like to have your personal tenant for trying all these things that we discussed today, you can go to docs.microsoft.com to this particular link and sign up for Office 365 developer program. And with that, you get personal Microsoft 365 subscription with E5 license. And it's excellent for personal training and development. And if you use this tenant for training and development, Microsoft will expand your trial period from 3 months to additional 3 months. You can also sign up for the free trial as well. And for Logic apps, you need access to MSDN, and these are the various ways you can get MSDN licenses or MSDN subscription. So hopefully the contents we covered today made you excited about implementing automated governance using the Flow and Graph APIs and SharePoint. With that, these are my contact details. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me using I think I stopped my deck here in the presenter mode. Let me do that one more time. And let me go back here. Okay, so these are my contact details. Feel free to contact me. I am available on Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can also email me as well. And please provide the feedback. So since we have 1 more minute left, I will quickly check if that flow has run, if that Logic app has run and the team got created, and then I will revisit the questions here. And I think since we have a separate meeting invite, those of you who have additional questions can stay here for Q&A. So looks like the team got created. Let me open up the team here, and you will see this team got created with a general channel, and it uses the default or base template. So this is a quick and easy way. And also if you see its name, now we can have some kind of naming convention here as well. So this is a quick and easy way you can implement automation if you don't have access to premium licenses. All right, so I see some questions here. Let me go one by one. How to get premium license and how much that
One
costs.
thing before that, Prashant. So folks, the next session will be starting. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to stay back and you can ask Prashant. But if not, please start moving to the next session. We are running properly on time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Vignesh. And thank you very much for joining us. And if you have any questions, stay here or feel free to join other sessions as well. So now I'll be going through the questions. First question is how to get premium license. So for that, just licensing is always challenging in Microsoft ecosystem, but you can just Google or Bing Power Automate premium license, and you will find the information on that. Right now, we have two options. One option is per user basis, and there is option also as per solution or per app basis as well. Depending on your use case, you can you can select which one you would like to do. And and then there is a comment from Piyush. I have gone through it, but confusing. It's not straightforward. And so this is so licensing is always a complicated task in Microsoft ecosystem, and my recommendation always is just work with your Microsoft representative and get the information from them. And then okay, all right, how we can keep step-by-step log of each action of the flow. Okay, so let's revisit that. So if you are looking at the step-by-step log of the flow, and same option is available in Logic app as well. So this Logic app was finished fine. And if I go Here I can see what exactly happened during the execution of each action, what kind of response came back. So if I expand this, I can see the entire information and what kind of values or what kind of JSON that came back. And this is really helpful when it comes to debugging as well. And if I scroll down, let's say if I'm interested in finding about the HTTP call, you will see the entire information there. Another way is you can see go to the run history, and in the run history you will see